Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past shows are archived. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. You want to send your questions and comments, and you can hit us up at DJ@ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, the way coolest people on the network, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
That's a really hard thing to live up to. But you know what? We're going to accept that. We are the way coolest people on the network as far as you people know.
That's right.
And I am Michael Lyons.
And I am Margaret.
Welcome to another episode of The Soul of the Everyman, as our wonderful DJ just reminded us all. And tonight's show is, I think, an interesting topic. We kind of... we went back, sometimes we do this, we go back through all of our topics that we've been done, and really it's been over the last year and a half, so we've had quite a few shows, and you people should go back and download every one of them, because they're awesome, and they're the way coolest shows on the network. And the one, or not the one topic, there are many, but the topic that was kind of stood out that we hadn't done was forgiveness.
Yes.
So please forgive us for not having done that.
We've been remiss.
We've been remiss. But and on the website, speaking of the website, we put up a very cool graphic. There's a wonderful quote there, and I'll just give it because we were kind of fascinated by it. The quote is by a gentleman by the name of Mr. Bloom. I can hardly read it. I'm sorry, it's so tiny. But it says, "Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hatred. It is a power that breaks the chains of bitterness and the shackles of selfishness." And we thought it was sort of very profound because, in fact, the opposite of that, when you don't forgive, somebody does you wrong, and we all can't get through life without having somebody do something to us that we find to be wrong. If you take that wrong, whatever it is, and kind of put it in your heart and hold that grudge nice and warm right next to your heart there, and hate these people forever and ever and ever and never ever going to forgive them, the person who is in chains is not the person who did the wrong to start with. It's you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an apt description of what hatred does to you. It really ties you up, locks your hands in handcuffs. And bitterness. When you see that you've been tied up in a reaction, and there is no freedom outside of that reaction. And if you think about it, what is a reaction? But suddenly there's been a trigger, and you are going through a process of well-worn emotions, responses, almost programmed in. And it takes so much to realize that you are in a reaction.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Trying to change that reaction is so very difficult, because usually you're in the reaction and you don't even realize you're going through the same series of feelings and emotions and responses.
Well, exactly, and I would say that all of us react to an event, something that will happen that will trigger anger, or will trigger a reaction, an emotional reaction, but forgiveness is something which is much longer term, or rather, unforgiveness is something which is much longer term. You are wronged, you react with anger, you then find that this person who has wronged you build up a resentment towards them, and you do sort of program your reaction to them. And then every time you either think of them, or you see them, or someone mentions their name, you get a twist in your gut. You get triggered again. You go through these same motions. Oh, that's the person that did X, Y, Z to me, and I'll never forgive them. But what you do as you do that, the "I'll never forgive them," is you kind of just reinforce it. You kind of build that wall. You put one more stone, one more brick on that wall, one more load of emotion in this giant emotion ball, and it's you who have to power that thing. You end up devoting a certain portion of your conscious living energy to keeping that emotion ball, that kind of unforgiveness, this kind of lump of unforgiveness, keeping it happy and fed and warm and alive. You have to breathe life into this parasite.
Well, they have found, I'm going to touch on the scientific aspect of this. Whenever there is a thought that goes through your mind, it literally has a pathway, a neural pathway that is created through your brain. And they say it's like a thought tree that forms because it has the branching throughout the brain itself that looks like a trunk of a tree that forks out into different patterns, I guess you can say, but it looks like a tree. And what they discovered was when you are taking a negative thought, that tree actually is not a very bright tree. It's almost like levels of darkness within that tree that happens. And when it is a positive experience, the linkings or the branching is exceedingly bright. So it's almost like there's frequencies to what your light levels that are happening in that branching that's going through your brain. I'd be curious to know if there's a variation of neurotransmitters or hormones or whatever because they said it's a level of brightness that happens when it's a negative or a positive experience. But the idea, your brain was made for those trees to be formed, those branchings, those thoughts. And when it's negative, it literally takes up real estate in your head. You know, you have a negative reaction to something, and what is that phrase that, don't let that be real estate in your head, between your ears.
Well, don't let them live rent-free in your head.
Right. But you're literally allowing that memory or that resentment to form this very dark or negative patterning in your brain instead of it being taken up by something that is positive and bright in your head.
Right. And the other thing about that, of course, is that you mentioned it. It's occupying real estate. It's occupying a portion of your consciousness. You have the triggers that we were talking about earlier. That you're talking about earlier are sort of an unconscious thing. Once you've programmed one, it sits there. It's not like this, but it's sort of like a mousetrap. Or it's basically something that, with the tiniest of provocation, sets off one of these trees. So the provocation can be just seeing this person, whoever this person is, or this thing that happened, seeing the name, and then it triggers the tree, the reaction, which is almost instantaneous. It blossoms into your mind. These trees aren't growing over 20 years; they're growing, in microseconds or milliseconds. So boom, this dark tree blossoms in your mind. All that sort of resentment and that unforgiveness, and it does two things. It does evoke all those emotions, but it also, in essence, takes you over for a period of time. You've given control of yourself and your life over to this person who evokes this reaction. So
it's a lot of power.
It's a lot, exactly. you've given over a portion of your will, your free will, which is no longer free. And that's alludes back to the quote. Unforgiveness is truly a chain because it's linking you to the object that you will not forgive.
Right. So you are bound to this awful thing, and the more you dwell on that, the stronger the chain is.
It reinforces it.
Because that's the thing that they were saying too about those trees in that are being made in the brain itself. You actually have to choose to alter that thought pattern in order to get rid of that darkness and light up that area with light instead of it being dark. So you have to choose in order to shift that.
And you mentioned again the triggers. The unforgiveness is a point of control that you've given away to the thing or the person that hurt you.
And literally a point of control. Do you really want to be controlled by something else besides you? And it's something super negative on top of it.
Exactly.
I mean, you really, that's got to be crystal clear that you are actually voluntarily giving control, a piece of you to that, so that it can drag you through the mud again and drag you through the anger again and drag you through the filth again.
And what people will say is, well, but they, whoever they were, just pick an example, this person hurt me. They did a terrible thing to me. I will never forgive them, and I have to hold that because I don't want to ever give them the satisfaction. And I think that that's a natural human reaction. You think that, and I think what it is in general terms, we conflate forgiveness with absolution.
Right.
We say if I forgive them, it's like I'm condoning that behavior.
Yeah, it's if you're saying it's okay that they hurt you like that. It's like
it's okay that you hurt me, and I think that teasing those two concepts away from each other, forgiveness is for you. Forgiveness is for your peace of mind, your own internal well-being. Because what all forgiveness should do is say that I withdraw the ability of the hurt to control me in the present. Right. Yes, it still happened. I think the other thing people conflate with forgiveness is forgetfulness, or that you no longer will, you just forget that thing. It's just gone. No, the hurt happened. What forgiveness does is break the ability of the hurt that is in the past to harm you in the present.
Right.
And unforgiveness allows the hurt in the past to harm you in the present and in the future. And frankly, the original person who may have hurt you can be long dead and still hurt you if you don't forgive.
It allows that transgression, that resentment, that negative event to hurt you again and again and again. And you don't need that in your life. You don't need to have that in your life. You can actually choose for that to become not effective in your present moment and in your future moment.
Exactly. So it's very important that we tease those two concepts apart. We say that there are three, really. There's the event itself, there's the memory of the event, and then there's the ability of the event to continue to hurt you. The event itself happened. It's immutable. It's in the past. It's a reality. The memory of the event should not be expunged or erased. You have to remember that something happened to you so that perhaps you can learn from it. But the ability of the event, whatever it was, to hurt you in the present comes down to the the degree to which you have given over control of yourself to your reaction to the event.
Mm-hmm.
So it is an act of reasserting your power.
Right.
One of the other quotes that we saw that we didn't bring into here is that that forgiveness is an act of strength, not of weakness. This was a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. He said, "Only strong people forgive. The weak cannot forgive."
That's true.
And
True.
The strength, the incredible strength it takes to forgive somebody, is sometimes the barrier. You have to say, yes, you were bad. Yes, I remember forever, perhaps, that you did something bad. But I will with my own strength, not allow you to control me in the present. So the strength of forgiveness is a powerful way of asserting your control again over somebody who had tried to take it away from you in the past.
Right.
So teasing those two things apart, you're not condoning the act or the hurt. In fact, by forgiving it, you're condemning it even more strongly. You're saying that this was a heinous act that requires forgiveness because there's nothing here that is redeeming about it. You are in essence not judging. You're saying that this thing was wrong, and I forgive you. I don't forget, and I give your eventual the justice for that act. I take myself out of it. I put it and say, this will go to God. This will go to the universe. This will go to you having to deal with that on your soul, not having you, whoever the person, the perpetrator was, also be able to continue to inflict it on my soul, on me.
My soul and heart, my heart is more important and more precious than what you have done, or not done, perhaps. Okay, but whatever it was, whatever the event was, it's an event. It is not who I am. I am much more than that event, and it does not mark me as victim. I do not receive that. In that event, that may have been where I was a victim, but I am much more.
It's a statement, both an affirmation of growth, of strength. You've grown beyond. You're bigger than that event. Don't let that define you. Someone else, I think it's Joyce Myers, always says that you can't be both pitiful and powerful at the same time. You can't say to people, "Oh, woe is me, pity me. I was a victim of whatever," in her case, sexual abuse, and be powerful and say, "I've overcome it. I'm stronger than that. I forgive." The two things are antithetical to each other. You have to claim back your power and stand up and say, "I am not defined by what someone did to me in the past." And in her case, she had to forgive her father, which was a heinous thing. And she did it so well in forgiving her father that I believe her father may have passed on at this point, but she brought him into her home. She gave him a good life and in essence, provided the blessings that he never gave her to him in forgiveness. That's as an example, it's an incredible example of strength, not weakness. Those who forgive, they say, turn the other cheek. Oh, that sounds so weak. No. You're saying, you hurt me so badly, but I forgive you. And I even give you the opportunity to hurt me again because I know that I will forgive you again.
Well, I continue to forgive you, mostly because I am forgiven.
Yes.
I mean, that you need help. You need divine help to be able to forgive on that level. That's for sure. That's very difficult to do. Very difficult to do.
It requires great strength.
Yes. So when it comes to allowing yourself, I mean, you really have to make the decision that you do not want to be in that pit again.
Mm.
And a lot of people do feel, yes, I'm justified. This was wrong that this person did to me.
And you are.
And yes, you are in the right, but it's not good for you to dwell continually in that victim mentality of what was done to you.
Exactly.
You will not come to a heart peace in that way. It tears you to shreds, and eventually your life and its quality and the joy drains away.
Mm.
And no one deserves that. You were never meant for that. Events do not define you. Again, I reiterate, events do not define you. You are not what happens to you.
Mm. Again, that's another wonderful point, because unforgiveness does keep you in the past and tie you to the event, and very clearly, forgiveness is an act which frees you,
Mm-hmm.
frees you, not the person who did the
Right.
event. It frees you, and unforgiveness literally binds you. It binds you back to the event. It keeps you in the victim status.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, when you are a victim and you do receive help, it's welcome. But to continually be victimized is a position which will inflict greater damage over time. And at some point, you go from being a victim of the person who started this whole thing by doing whatever it is that they did, to being a victim of your own self.
Yes.
Unforgiveness, continual unforgiveness, and continually keeping present in your mind the memory and the living memory of a wrong that was done to you is now self-damaging. That person, like I said before, that person could be long dead. They can never hurt you again in the physical. Or they could be far separated from you, or never able to approach you physically again in any way, shape, or form. Yet, the present memory, the unforgiven memory, has the same power to wound.
Right. And up on the website, the phrase is the shackles of selfishness. Forgiveness is the power that breaks chains of bitterness and the shackles of selfishness. And I know that concept, that selfishness is a shackle. Most people don't think about. Selfishness itself can be a shackle.
Mm.
And one of the strongest shackles that you can get is when resentment has taken hold. You resent this, you resent that. That feeling of resentfulness or being brings you to that level of bitterness in your life.
Mm-hmm. I think a good example of it is when you say, if X hadn't done Y to me, I would be Z. If my father hadn't abused me as a child, I would be successful. And it does two horrible things to you. It of course has the memory and the re-triggering of the abuse, but it also it kills all current and present drive and ambition, because you say, well, I can't possibly succeed. If you believe you can't succeed, you've given yourself 9 out of 10 chances to fail. You've taken almost everything away, because you say, well, I don't approach things with I I will try and I will succeed, and maybe I won't, but my attitude is I will. You approach them with, I'll never succeed because I didn't have X. So that person is not just stealing your past or your present. They're stealing your future. They're stealing your ability to succeed and grow and live and love in the future. Don't give that power away. The future is unknown, and instead, if you approach the future with the attitude that you can never succeed, you won't.
Mm-hmm.
And if you say to yourself, you can't succeed because, this person did this to me in the past. I didn't have this kind of childhood because of this person. So therefore, I'll never succeed. Gosh, oh my goodness, you've given away not just your current life, but your whole future life. It's
all hope.
All hope. You put yourself not just in a black hole, but you put yourself in a black hole that has no escape.
Wasn't that what Dante had above the entrance?
Abandon all hope, ye who enter here.
Right. That's the entrance towards hell.
Mm-hmm. And Washington. Wait a minute, they're the same thing. I don't know where that came from. But we have to forgive, because forgiveness is the key to unlock our current happiness and our future happiness. And the bitterness and the shackles that are upon you, that are placed upon you, are powered by that unforgiveness. They are strengthened by that unforgiveness.
Right. And just the first of all, that concept that it has to do with that selfishness at the core. And usually that's because you do feel you've made a judgment call on yourself because of what has happened.
Mm.
So the self that is within you knows automatically that this is not right. But you get bludgeoned by that outward, well, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. And it's like, yes, but who are you?
Mm.
Are you only saying that, well, I'm that's being locked in that, well, I'm a victim. This is what happened to me. But who are you? Why are you still alive? Why are you breathing? There's more to you than just what had happened. Your heart is still beating. So life is still in you.
Mm.
Breath in your body. Do you go on?
Mm.
Do you embrace light? Do you bring light into your life? Or are you just going to allow that darkness to surround you and try to engulf you?
Mm. Well, and you almost encourage it to engulf you, and if you don't forgive, if you hold bitterness casts that shadow.
Mm-hmm. And truth be told, the life that is in you wants life to live.
And light.
Mm-hmm. So the first step is always choosing. Are you going to choose to live? Oh my.
Oh my. Well, and on these happy notes, we're going to take a little break, go back to the studio. But on the other side, we're going to talk a little bit more about why we need forgiveness, because you know what? We're not always perfect either.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
Taking God on Patrol is a first-person account of the world of law enforcement from the perspective of a Christian police officer in the fourth largest city in America. From speeding car chases to the crossing of the thin blue line, author Mark S. Cariner seeks to find God's biblical truth in a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement. And check out Mark's newest book, The Tactical Heart. Both are available at Amazon.com.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indy Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, D-Man. And yes, you are listening to the second half hour of The Soul of the Everyman show. And tonight's show, Please Forgive Us, is about forgiveness.
That's right.
And I say please forgive us because, in fact, we talked last half hour a lot about how important it is for us to forgive others. But in fact, it's very important also for ourselves to be forgiven, because you know what? Amazingly, we're not all perfect.
Mm-hmm. Even to ourselves.
Even to ourselves, and actually, those are the two aspects of forgiveness that we're going to talk about this half hour. Is the first one is learning to forgive yourself, and we're often our own worst critics, and then learning to accept and ask for. It's ask for. Beg for forgiveness from others. And of those two, I'm not sure which is more important, but very often people have a hard time forgiving themselves.
Yes, I would say forgiveness of yourself is the hardest and the core of being able to forgive at all. Because whatever you do not forgive means that you've judged against. And when you judge against yourself, something that's happened, something you failed at, something that you feel that is unforgivable that you've done to yourself, that leaves an area in your consciousness that says, well, if this is unforgivable for me, it's got to be unforgivable in general. For everyone and everything. So not forgiving yourself really sets up a wall. You know, it's like a dead tree in your head, okay? It's taking up that space in your head. And when that unforgiveness of yourself, whatever it may be, is there, you act in relationship with other people. In your relationships with other people, you'll find that it will rear its head over and over again. Like, some people judge themselves because they're not perfect. You know, I didn't do that perfectly. Oh, well, that was wrong. You know, and when someone else doesn't do it perfectly, they have the same kind of reaction. And the truth is, I remember growing up, we were taught that, you know, well, you're supposed to be in charge of you, so you are the perfect judge of you. You know, no one else may judge you, but you can judge you. And the judgment there was not a simple, you know, understanding what happened. It bore an emotional impact. There was an emotional charge on the word judgment. So if you judged negatively, then there was this emotional, this was bad,
right,
kind of thing. So therefore, you were supposed to come down hard on yourself because it was so bad. So you have to come down as hard as the bad was. And the truth of the matter is, you're not supposed to do it like that. Judgment like that, with that emotional charge, does damage. And it builds that negative tree.
Yes.
You know, and it's like, no, this is not, you're supposed to be aware, but you're not supposed to judge with a capital J like that. That's not your job.
That's not your job. And so the sort of the lie of being able to judge oneself and to say to oneself that this is you talking to you now, that you are unforgivable. It is incredibly damaging because it blocks off a couple of things. It blocks the ability to initially to see others in a forgiving light. If you say, I must be perfect or I am bad,
right,
then all others have to meet that standard. It's an unreasonable standard, but if you impose it upon yourself, you're very likely to impose it upon others. So to turn it around, realizing within yourself that you are an imperfect temporal being, a being that is in time and in space, and that you can never be perfect, that you will always, even under the best of circumstances, commit some sort of wrong. And then you must learn and understand that you have the need to both forgive yourself for being imperfect and then therefore forgive others for being imperfect. It extends outward. The converse is true. If you learn that you are not perfect, you will then much more easily understand that others are not perfect. Then when somebody does something wrong, the very first reaction, if you have this kind of negative tree, is, oh, they're doing that something wrong to be mean to me specifically. They're on purpose doing that wrong. They're bad. They're horrible people. And you get this whole negative tree emotion that charges that all up, and you have that whole, you know,
reaction.
Unforgiveness, resentment, bitterness reaction. Instead, if you instead of letting that kind of guide you in assigning motives to people's probably unwitting mistakes, you do the other. You say, well, you know, the tree that I understand, the one that is positive, is that I'm not perfect. And so how can I expect others to be perfect? I know that I have faults and failings and that I fall far short from the grace of Spirit, of the grace of God. And then therefore others do too. And that then the exercise of realizing our limited and flawed humanity is to both extend this particular grace, to oneself. I am not perfect. I will never be perfect. No one else will be perfect. And therefore, when someone does something wrong, you look at them and say, you know, there but for the grace of God go I. I could have done that wrong thing. Maybe there are certainly heinous acts which are never right. But we're talking on the level of a thoughtless word, a casual wrong, something that somebody did that could easily be ascribed a negative motive, but probably had no such thing. And that practice of everyday forgiveness, of just saying, they were probably having a bad day. They had X, Y, or Z happen, and part of it is sort of realizing that we're all struggling with something.
Mm-hmm.
That when you see another, you have the idea is, instead of seeing another and saying, why aren't they perfect, you see another and say, gosh, with compassion, I know that even though they're appearing to be all together, they're probably struggling with something, because we're all struggling with something. We all have our good days and bad days. We all, certainly, I'll speak for myself, we are all sinners. We are all bad. We all do bad things. We all fall far short of what our best selves could be on a daily basis. And so learning that you are not perfect and that you have faults, you extend it to others. And it's a good thing to learn as a child. When children are raised in a environment of forgiveness and love and understanding, they extend that to others as they grow. When they're raised in an environment of stricture and intolerance and unreasonable demands of perfection, whatever they may be, they will turn that around, and it's very easy, without a lot of effort to break it, very easy to continue that cycle.
Yeah, perfection. If this is, when a culture presents that to a child, if this is perfection, this is what you're supposed to aspire to. This is what, and the sad part about it is that it's not just your parents, let's say, that are pushing this on you, but you've got all their friends and family saying, no, this is where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to go for this or do that, or like growing up, let's say I got a B in that class. Well, why'd you get a B in that class? Where's the A? You're supposed to get the A.
Right.
And continually, there's no credit or acknowledgement given for the effort that was put in, or the creativity, or how valued you are because you're just you. And maybe you had a bad day. No. I need that A.
Right. And that's a wonderful point, because the stricture that's being imposed upon there is external to the person. It's saying, I the other, need you to do X, Y, Z, so that
exactly.
I demand perfection of you. And we can strive for excellence. That's the other thing people conflate. Well, if you don't demand perfection, then they'll just be lazy. No, you say excellence is to be greatly rewarded and to be strived for. But we will strive for excellence and fail time and time again. Where the excellence really comes in? Try again. You try to do it your best. You fail because you're not perfect. And somebody doesn't say to you, you're not perfect, therefore you're condemned, you can never be right. No, they say to you, you're not perfect, but the perfect thing is to try again. If you still want it, if it's still valuable, try again. You learn patience with yourself. You learn that excellence is not something which is easily achieved, nor is it something which goes unpraised as only just what was expected. Oh, excellence is what we expect, so therefore excellence is just like, good, keep it up.
Well, that was the attitude. I've set the standard this high, and you must come to here, and everybody's got to come up to this, and you're just sitting there going, what is going on here? As a child, it used to confuse me when I see this, because it's like, I don't get it. And if I ask you to explain whatever this subject is or the test was, you can't even help me. You don't even know what you're talking about. So how am I supposed to give weight to what you say?
Right.
I don't understand. What is this standard that you're putting in front of me? And eventually I figured out, well, this is just so that they could feel good about themselves.
Exactly.
It wasn't about whether or not I actually learned something in the subject matter, whatever it may be. It was, here's my trophy that I have. I can show my friends and say, look what my kid did.
Exactly. And you see that a lot, but I think there's two things to tease out of that. Number one is it's a highly conditional form of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's love with only if you're excellent, only if you reach perfection can I love you, and it's the absolute opposite of the love that's shown to us by our Creator. Our Creator says, I know you're imperfect. I know there's just nothing we can do with you. You guys are schlubs. But I love you anyway. Okay? And I know you're trying.
One step above slime. I get it.
One step, but the point is that step is an important one, and it is the inability of ourselves to earn love, to earn, which means that you, in essence, you've met perfection, and therefore you can be loved. That's the standard of the deceiver. The standard of the deceiver is if you're not perfect, you are unforgivable, and therefore you must be shunned and placed in the darkness and never be able to talk to me again. And I will only talk to perfection, which means I'll never talk to anybody because no one's ever perfect.
But that was exactly what was being taught in order to control the children of a culture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You have got to reach this standard of perfection. And even if, just speaking for myself, even if I was able to pull 100 or over 100, which occasionally you were able to do because of whatever, there was never, okay, well, I'm going to talk to you now because, you've proved yourself worthy.
Right.
It was like, oh, no, well, we'll do this at another time. Or and it was always, well, how about this one? Or what about that one? And you began to realize as you got older that, okay, this is not about me.
No.
Not at all. And this is not the unconditional love that I'm looking for. And there's part of you, your heart knows that unconditional love is what you deserve.
Right.
Because your spirit knows this, and your soul is looking for outward reflections of it. And you don't always see it when you live in this world. You just don't. It's very few and far between where you're able to see reflections of unconditional love around you. It was, that was an eye-opener. Because you just went, oh.
And to distill that a little bit, what was being done there was moving the goalposts.
Mm-hmm.
The bargain was, if we're going to strike a bargain, is be perfect, and I'll love you. Terrible bargain, but that's the bargain. And you reach the perfect, the goal, and then they say, oh, well, what I meant was, there's another perfect. So it becomes never about, as you said, never about the person who's being asked to be perfect, or never about them actually succeeding. It is all about control.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about, I have this completely unattainable cookie that you want. And my control is that I'll never give it to you. I'll just keep demanding perfection from you. Now, that's a horrible thing. But if you teach that, it can be passed on that way. It can turn into a whole culture.
Yeah, there's whole families.
And the key to break that is a part of the key to break that is forgiveness. You have to say, I know I'm not perfect. I know that this is a lie. This idea that I have to be perfect. What I have to be is willing to try, willing to strive, willing to try to achieve the goal I set for myself. That's all good, but not conditionally, not putting on those conditions whether I can have communication with the other. It isn't perfection. The door to communication with the other, with the parent, with God, is not perfection. The door is willingness. The door is openness. The door that shuts is saying, be perfect and I'll open the door, because you can never get there. And if you're not perfect, the door remains forever shut. You're never going to be in communication with me until you're perfect. So,
And do you know what that does to a person? I mean, I've seen that, the results of that, a whole lifetime of striving for that unconditional love from a parent who is not willing to give it. It is one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
yes.
And you realize that, frankly, a human being cannot give what it doesn't have. And seeing that happen means that the person that you're looking for that love from can't give it to you, or can't give it to their child, because they never received it from their parent, and that person never received it from their parent. So forgiveness breaks that chain. You realize that this is something greater than just this one generation.
It's multi-generational.
Right. And you want to break it for the sake of the family. This is something you decide, this is not being passed on. I refuse to take that as a baseline for our family bloodline.
Right.
And once you break that, what you find that happens is it reverberates through the bloodline. It actually goes into the past relationships and shifts it. Just as you've decided, to shift the timeline and the results in the present moment so that the future and your children do not receive that kind of experience.
That bitterness.
Yes, it is a very bitter thing to have in your life. So to understand that you, as an individual, as a human being, at any given moment, you have the power to change not only your life, but those that you love. Do you want to do this? Because once you decide that you want this to change, the love that is inside of you will power that change. And the wisdom that you need in order to shift it also comes through that love.
Exactly. And the other part of before we, I don't want to, our full hour to escape here before we get there, the other part of forgiveness is begging forgiveness. And people, well, let's speak for ourselves. I'll speak for myself for a minute. You are going to do wrong. You are not perfect. I am not perfect. When you do wrong, there's the realization that you did wrong. So you say, I know that I did something wrong. Then there's the, who did I wrong? Find the person or find the people who you did wrong. And then there's the hard part, asking for forgiveness. And again, forgiving is an act of strength. Begging for forgiveness, saying, I was wrong, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Those are words which will snap people's tongues right off. The first one is, I was... that's a hard one. I was wrong. I was wrong. And the second one is please forgive me. Forgive me. You beg for forgiveness. And it's a very hard thing to do. You have to realize that you did something wrong. You then have to say to someone, you have to admit you were wrong, and then you have to ask to be forgiven. And it looks weak, right? It looks weak. It's like, I'm not the strong person demanding forgiveness. There's one thing you cannot do. You cannot demand forgiveness. You can't say, forgive me, damn it. Or what? What are we going to do? No, you have to say you have to put yourself into a position of, in essence, powerlessness. And when you're a person who believes in a forgiving God, you have to say very often, sometimes on an hourly basis, God, please forgive me. I did something wrong. I hurt this person. I'm going to go and ask them for forgiveness, but I have to ask you for forgiveness too. The putting yourself in the position of not being the all-powerful, godlike person that you really are, but actually putting yourself in the position of being the fallible, frail human being that you really, really are, and that you know that you do wrong, that you know you can't ever be perfect, and that you say to yourself, well, you know what? I did something wrong. I hurt those people. I'm going to have to admit it, and I'm going to have to ask them to forgive me. These are hard things. These are things that require lots of strength and practice. And it's so much easier. It's so much easier to say, oh, I don't care. They'll never forgive me anyway. I don't care if they don't like me or what. I'm just going to go along with my life and pretend that never happened. That's really easy. That's an easy, weak thing to do, because you can pretend that they don't matter and that what you did wasn't that bad.
Right.
Well, but it really is that. It really is and can be that bad. And there's these two things can happen. People can forgive you when you don't ask for forgiveness, and that's good for them. It is good for them. But it's really, really good for you to go to the people that you have wronged. And I know all the rest of you are perfect, but the people I have wronged. And I say to them, I really screwed that up, and I was that. And please forgive me. I was just a jerk. I was having a bad day. Whatever. You just say, please forgive me, and hope that they will. And in receiving forgiveness, in receiving the balm and the blessing of forgiveness, you become whole again. You become a human being free. When you've wronged somebody, the realization that you have wronged somebody will weigh upon you.
Mm-hmm. There will be no peace in your heart when you realize that there has been a wrong that you've done. It will bother you. And just your heart. Your heart peace is so important. I can't stress that enough. That peacefulness is the only thing that can anchor you in the maelstrom of this life. Because this life is not peaceful. Lord knows, if it was, it would be perfect. But perfect peace is not a part of this place.
No.
But yes, peace in the heart. If forgiveness gives that, allows you to come back to balance and harmony with everything around you, and the pressure is off. You're no longer tied down with bitterness or
guilt.
Guilt or resentment.
I think that if you know you've done wrong, it's a feeling of guilt, a feeling of shame, a feeling of the peacefulness that you give up when you have wronged somebody is that if you're not totally evil, you've done wrong.
Right.
And sometimes begging someone's forgiveness is a measure of peace, and begging the forgiveness, laying your sins out in front of your Creator, can also bring you a measure of peace. But again, being forgiven doesn't mean you didn't do it. Doesn't mean you maybe shouldn't get punished for it. All it means is that you have the peace of realizing that you were human, that you knew you did something wrong, and you knew you needed forgiveness for that wrong thing. Yes, you may also have to pay for that, make some restitution, be punished. But the greater punishment is trying to remain in this unforgiven state and not caring.
Well, if you go into the not caring, you're trying to shut down a part of your awareness. And when you shut down part of your awareness, there is nothing but darkness. You are basically embracing darkness to try to cover up what you know.
Less than human.
So, on that note, we've come to the end of our hour.
Yes, we have. And thank you very much for listening to The Soul of the Everyman. And
I am Margaret.
And I'm Michael Lyons, and please forgive me.